So Mark Breland makes his final statement on this whole Deontay Wilder situation and that interview. Stay tuned. There's lots to talk about. So, welcome to BWTM Sports Gaming. Good morning to you if you're in the UK, and good night to you if you're in Australia. And anyway, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are in the world. Today, listening to this particular video, I want to just start by saying thank you. The last week has been really encouraging. As you may or may not know, the UK is on a national lockdown, and many of us have had to stay at home unless it's essential to go out. So with that being said, that separates people from their families and their friends, those who are listening. And it can be an interesting place to be mentally. So this morning is sponsored by lemon and water, hot lemon and some water. And vitamin C, it's really good. Alkalines the body, see, because if you alkaline the body, warm water, some lemon on an empty stomach, it's great because it alkalines the body. All disease cause is started in the colon, right? So if you can keep yourself alkaline body, then you're free of disease or less chances of having disease. So this is good stuff, cleans the body out. It's all good. I'm always talking about other things, but this is what I do every morning. So there's a little secret there. It feels good as well. Right, let's get into this. Mark Breland has made his final statement. Oh, for those of you who are watching and want to make comments, become a member. It's inexpensive, $1.99, $1.99. Become a member and get involved with the chat. It's all good, and it's a great way to support the channel. Listen, again, I want to say thank you to those people recently who have sent either direct messages or have gone on the Facebook page and left messages. I want to say to you, thank you so much. Your support means so much. You have no idea how much your support is and how far your support goes, particularly in a time like this. But your support, I appreciate you so much. If I could, I'd meet you all, sit down and have a pint of, I don't know, I'll have a J2O with you all if I could. I would. But anyway, that's another story for another day. Let's get into this. Mark Breland has made a final statement. I haven't read the final statement, so every reaction you get from me here is literally live. I literally haven't. So I'm going to the article now. All I've done is gone to the article, click to share, and we're going right to the article now. Again, we're going back to our people, SB Nation. We'll be looking at what they've got to say about it or how they've reported it. SB Nation. So Mark Breland issued statement on Deontay Wilder rift. Deontay had become untrainable. Now, in defense of Mark Breland, let me go back a second. Before I read this, in defense of Mark Breland, or in leaving a door half open for Mark Breland to kind of get himself out of what he said, if you go back and listen to our interview we did with Junior Jones, IBF bantamweight champion, two-weight world champion, absolute legend of boxing. If you go back and listen to that interview I did with Junior Jones, and he's close friends with Mark Breland, and he just got off the phone to Mark Breland, and he said that Deontay Wilder wasn't trainable. That's what Breland had told his close friend, Junior Jones. Junior Jones told us this in an interview, what, last year, November, December time? And this stuff is coming out now. So they said there's no smoke without fire, okay? And I've heard these stories about Wilder not being the most diligent of trainers, but I've never seen him come into a fight not in shape. I've never seen him blowing the gas tank. I've only seen him in one fight where he's looked exhausted, which was the second Fury fight, and completely out of it. But other than that, Wilder's always in shape, always in great shape, never overweight or Imagine Deontay Wilder looking overweight, by the way. Yeah, always looking in supreme shape and an athlete. So, obviously he does something. Well, let's say he doesn't run, but Evander Holyfield, from what I understand, didn't do a lot of running either. So, and he wasn't too bad a heavyweight, was he? All right, let's get into this article and see what BRELAND's talking about and whatever. Let's go. There we go. BRELAND had initially been quiet on his falling out of Wilder, but now has become a lot more to say. Okay. This isn't quite what I would have expected after so long, but there's a war of words being played out publicly between Deontay Wilder and his former trainer Mark BRELAND, all stemming from Wilder's stoppage loss to Tyson Fury, where BRELAND threw in the towel. BRELAND would eventually be fired by Wilder for making that decision, and while Wilder made a lot of nefarious allegations towards his former trainer, BRELAND for a long while didn't dignify those accusations with a response. But now it appears BRELAND's had enough and has been sharing his perspective on his fallout with the former heavyweight champion, and says he's got an autobiography in the works where more will be revealed. Make of that what you will. So, in an Instagram post that demonstrates that BRELAND isn't really hip to social media best practices, BRELAND posted a series of photos of this public statement discussing his spat with Wilder, which I'll transcribe in minimal editing to make it easier to read. But this is not me who's writing this. This is from SB. Now, this is BRELAND. Now, you can call this the official Mark BRELAND Speaks. I've had enough. I'm going to say some things that were reserved for my autobiography. Still buy the book. There's so much more. I'm going to add a couple of pictures. One, a quote from a Daily News reporter where it says, Mark BRELAND, Mr. BRELAND is usually quiet unless it's something he's passionate about. So true. And this subject that has me passionate, actually beyond passionate. So I'm not giving nobody this interview. I'm using my own platform since I've been opened up like a can of sardines. On the last podcast I was on, damn, they couldn't even wait till the next show to talk about me. I went on that show following my requests with them for no Deontay talk. But when you've been holding on to something for so long and you're pissed about it, obviously anyone can push your buttons and all kinds of shit may come out. But that's not the environment that I would choose to speak on. So here's Mark's take. Anyone who thinks I meant I could beat AJ or Deontay's opponents now at age 57 doesn't require a response. At my age, the only fight I'll have is the one for my life. I ain't getting hit no more. I've had my share fights. As a fighter with little experience, I'm speaking on what I see. I stand by my words that the skill set and boxing IQ I see on AJ and many other fighters from my former fighter fought would not get past a few rounds of me if I were in the same era in the same weight class, obviously. As for Deontay Wilder is done, and I'm done, I meant with each other. I have no idea what or where this man's career is going, and I'm not interested to predict his career. Glad you cleared that up. The facts are that my time in coaching position with Bronze Bomber changed drastically in the 12 years since I started with him. When he turned pro with Jay Diaz, called me and humbly asked that he needed a trainer for a great prospect he had in the gym. Boxing goes like this. You walk into the gym, I train you. I found you, and sometimes I manage you too. So Jay was seen as the head trainer in the media, but I was the only one in the team with a boxing resume, and I was the only trainer. That was okay with me because of my humility. I didn't have to be the one in front of the camera. I lived that life. After Deontay became a name in boxing, new members did join the team, and it got to the point where I didn't even have the fighter's phone number. I haven't spoken to Deontay alone in years. The things that I told Deontay to do had to be ran past day. Excuse me a second. Talking too damn fast. Deontay has become untrained because he was at the point of where he knew more about boxing than all of us. So teaching a correct jab was not priority to learn once he continued on his knockout streak. So a coach can only teach someone if they're willing to learn. We would wait for the champ for hours before he arrived at the gym, and Jay would inform us of his mood. If he had a bad day, he would be quiet to be not on the receiving end of his wrath, according to Jay, in an effort not to be fired. And yeah, hitting the bag, jump rope, and running is not high on the list. So if you don't feel like it, he and Jay didn't seem to understand the importance of those things. So he would make it clear not to ask Deontay twice. If I tried to pull Deontay to the side and tell him what I see, Jay made it clear. Don't say nothing. You don't want to make him mad. I watch this man, Deontay, speak to many people disrespectfully, and although I'm extremely humble and calm, I'm a man first. I stayed on him because I've been there from the beginning. I believed his power and willingness to learn more, he could be a force in the sport. I never thought anything this insane would take place. I should not have addressed who had the water because the accusation is so as seen. It doesn't deserve a reply. Anyone who knows a tiny bit of boxing knows we're tested before and after a fight. So that's the end of that ludicrous allegation. And there's the gloves. To say that I say that there's one time I'm glad Jay treated me like I didn't matter. So he does all the head trainer aspects, the witness for the hand wraps, the press interviews, everything, whereas the camera is involved, except hand wraps. I'm responsible for that. I'm not sure if Diaz knows. In all the years, I can't recall seeing him do it. Now, this chapter life has come to an end. I won't be talking about it anymore. To those who know me, I don't need to say anything. And to those who don't, I'm not trying to defend such ridiculous, outlandish allegations. Lastly, at that fight, just as many others, we had no cutman because Deontay didn't need it. So I'm not a doctor, but I know blood coming from your ears and glazed eyes could be a brain issue. And power comes from your legs, and his legs were gone. So I made a decision to stop the fight, and I'll do it again. I have a son, Deontay's age. I'm not looking to see him go out on the shield. I hope we all stay safe. There are many bigger issues in the world. And that is a statement from Mark BRELAND. That is an interesting statement from Mark BRELAND there. Very interesting statement. Very interesting indeed what he said. For me, this is a very interesting article. Now, first of all, I will say this much in terms of Mark BRELAND in this article. When BRELAND made the decision to go and do that interview, what did he expect? What the hell did Mark BRELAND expect going on doing that interview? Huh? What the hell do you expect? You have been fired by Deontay Wilder. You're going on a podcast in the UK. You're going to no, you're not going to podcast in America. You're going to podcast in the UK. Now, who sent you to go and do that interview if you didn't want to talk about it? And you say, "Oh, let's not talk about Deontay Wilder." What else are we going to talk about, Mark? What the hell else are we going to talk about? You're talking your stuff about you've been with Deontay Wilder for so many years. You've been fired by Deontay Wilder. What else is there to talk about, Mark? We're not going to talk about your career, are we? What the hell does anyone want to talk about your career for? How many years have you been a retired fighter? You're 57 years old. What did you not get the memo that people want to talk to you about the fact that, hey, you got fired by Deontay Wilder. There's a lot of accusations going on. We want to know what's going on. That was a whole damn important interview. That was the underlying fact of the interview. Yeah, you were a great fighter in your day, and you were Olympian and all that stuff. That's great, but nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody gives a damn about that, Mark. People want to know the fact that you got fired by Deontay. Deontay's made some statements about you. What are your thoughts about it? That's the damn underlying factor. That's what it is. And before I do any interviews, no matter who I talk to, the first question I ask them after, I've gotten comfortable, spoken to them, say, hey, how you doing? How's your day? How's it been? What's going on? Then I'll ask them the question before I go live. I say to them, or before I do the interview, is there anything you don't want to talk about? That's protocol with everybody I interview. Even with Uncle Bashir, who you see me talking to all the time. Is there anything you don't want to talk about? And to back that up, you hear people like Steven say, I'll tell you this off the record. So there's backing that up. So for BRELAND to go on and do this, right? For BRELAND to go on an interview in the UK as well, it's not even America, and the UK, and do this interview is, to me, astounding. It really is. It makes no sense whatsoever to me. Absolutely no sense. And you know, what did you want them to talk about, Mark? Cup of tea? Your Olympic career? You fight with Lloyd Hannigan? Or you fight with Marlon Starling? What did you want to talk to them? You know what? How to throw a jab? I mean, how long is that you're going to last? And of course, the people who are listening, the viewer's going to say, "Wait, you got Mark BRELAND in the room, and you're not you're not even asking the elephant in the room." So let's say it was me in that situation, and Mark BRELAND said to me, I said, "Look, we're going to talk about the Deontay. Is that okay if we talk about the Deontay Wilder situation? Get fired?" He went, "No." I said, "That's it. No interview. Bye." And that would have been that. That would have been the end of it. And don't don't think for 1 second I haven't done that on certain interviews before. There's certain names that I could call, big names I could call, that I was in a position to do an interview with, and said, "Well, if you're not going to talk about the subject, we're not going to talk about it, because there's no point." Because all people can ask me is, "Well, why didn't you ask that question? Why didn't you ask that question?" But touch wood, that's been very rare. I've had that situation. And when people come out, they really do come out and say what they've got to say on the channel. So that's for that point there. A lot of the stuff that Mark BRELAND said in this sounds like a real trainer. It does bring questions up against Jay Diaz. We all know, when I asked the question with Jay, who the hell is Jay Diaz? Was a criminal investigator or something like that? Or was a teacher? I don't know. But he was never a trainer. So Mark BRELAND was the guy that was training Deontay Wilder. That I believe as well. I can believe that. Now, the thing with the gloves, what qualifies Jay Diaz to be able to check gloves? What qualifies Jay Diaz? What qualifies him? So the thing with Mark BRELAND say he stopped the fight because he saw the blood coming out of his ear and the legs were gone. That's true. His legs, he didn't have any stability. And when you want to throw power punches, you do need stability. So that makes sense in that. Right? And he said he didn't want to see Deontay Wilder get hurt any further. So he was being a compassionate trainer. Added to the fact that I did the interview Junior Jones, and he turned around and said, "Hey, Deontay has been untrainable." And added to the fact of boxing culture and boxing history. Boxing history tells us that when a fighter starts out his career, he's got one guy, he's trainer, and maybe he's got one or two guys, and people don't really believe him at first. Once they become a champion, you get what we get, hangers-on in boxing. So I believe that. And if we want to really go even further into this, look at the career of Alexander Usyk. When Usyk started his professional career, a few people around him, and Uncle Bashir was in all the time. And at the end of their parting, there were all these other new people started coming in around Usyk. And then Bashir found himself on the outside looking in. So this is nothing new in boxing. So a lot of stuff Mark BRELAND saying is believable. And it now balances up what he was saying as opposed to what we heard before. So I'm kind of glad he did that. He also turned around and mentioned the stuff about Deontay Wilder being finished. He said that he's finished with him in a relationship, but as a career, he don't know where his career is going. So I'm glad Mark cleared that up as well, because for him to come out and say that his career was finished just like that was pretty it was pretty idiotic, to be honest, to say something like that. But I'm actually glad Mark BRELAND has made that statement like that. It makes sense. So the ball now lays back in Deontay Wilder's camp. Do I believe what Mark BRELAND's saying about Deontay Wilder? I could believe it. I could well believe it. I could well believe it because that's boxing culture. I believe it. When Deontay Wilder started his career, you watch Deontay Wilder when he started his career and the way he used to talk and the way he used to move and the way he used to behave. And then you watch Deontay Wilder when he became world champion And as he's grown into becoming a champion, just watch it. And yes, he has been relying on that right hand, and that right hand has got him into positions where he's defended his title, what, 9, 10 times. But Breland's probably alluding to the fact that he could have done a lot more as a fighter. But, you know, if you know that it's not working, he said he hadn't spoken to Deontay for years. How could you say you're a man? How could you allow this to continue? How could you allow this disrespect to continue? And then Jay Diaz, who's Jay Diaz in boxing? You talk about being an Olympian and being a trainer and all this stuff. The element of that sounds like, you know, the money. It was a money thing. So, and then Deontay Wilder turns and says about Breland and the money, and he's been there, he's been looking after him. So I think that Breland needs to show, you know, the best way to teach a person about value is when you walk away. Breland would have been better off to have walked away from this situation with Deontay. When he saw what was going on, when he saw that it was coming less and less and less connected with the champion, he should have known it's time to walk away. But what are you sticking around for? The money. Because it's nothing. You're not talking to the guy. You don't have a talking. You don't have a personal relationship with him. You said that you see him like a son. He wasn't treating him like a father. So you're around there for the money. So there, if you're around there just for the money, then that leaves things open, because you're not there because you have a close relationship with the fighter. You did. But you haven't spoken to Deontay for years. So that means you've got a very cold relationship with Deontay. So your commitment to Deontay isn't the same way as if you had a close relationship with Deontay. Which leaves doors open for when you've got issues like that in a camp, the whole divide and conquer thing starts to happen. And in a camp like that with disarray, and the fighter and the trainer, who is the strong part of the fighter's makeup, separate, and other people get inside that camp, cause dissension and all the rest of it. This person says this about this person, that person, divide and conquer. It happens. So, as I said before, I don't think that this thing with Mark Breland happened at the Wilder fight with Fury. I think this was boiling a long time ago, and this was just the final straw. So now Malik Scott, I suppose, was in that camp. But Malik Scott was also in various other camps. He was, I think, it was. If you see Malik Scott is in many camps, I'm hearing stories that he might be training now Deontay Wilder. Listen, after all this is settled and done, Deontay Wilder is going to have to show himself to be the man that Breland said he isn't, which is going to kind of be, it might be difficult for him to do that now. Those hangers-on, now that he's not champion, those hangers-on may disappear, and that might clear the way for him to make a comeback under a good trainer. But, you know, there's no smoke without fire. I do believe Breland when he talks about Wilder being untrainable. Well, it's difficult to be trained someone who doesn't have respect for you. It's difficult to train someone who you don't talk to over the phone. He said he had spoken to Wilder for years, and he didn't have Deontay Wilder's number for years. For years, you didn't have Deontay Wilder's telephone number. Why the hell are you training him? Why are you training him? Who made that decision? Who made that call? Who made that damn call? You're the trainer. You're the guy that's put all the effort into Deontay Wilder, and you allow yourself to be so devalued as a trainer that you don't allow, you don't have a telephone number to your fighter? My friend, that's walking out time, unless you needed the money. Now, I'm not saying people do what they've got to do for the money, but when you say people do what they do for the money, that leaves the door open for anything and everything. That's just life, isn't it, people? If you're a hustler and you're hustling for money, because at this point in time, he said years he hadn't spoken to Deontay Wilder, years, and he was the trainer, but Jay Diaz was basically the handler. So Jay Diaz was getting the credit for BRELAND's work. Sounds familiar? Sounds familiar, man. It ain't cool. No way, shape, or form is this cool. I hope other trainers learn from this situation with BRELAND. And it's all too common in boxing where when a fighter's on his way up, there's not a lot of people around, but as soon as they hit that big time and the big time money, all these people start to hang around. I don't know. It is a cancer in boxing. And only you look at a Klitschko camp, that's a professional camp. I mean, he only has there people who need to be there. Otherwise, all those hangers on are out of the way. Like that. That's that Klitschko camps, Lennox Lewis camps, Marvin Hagler's camp. There's probably others that used to go away into, look at Scott Harrison, where they go up into the mountains and training away from everybody. That sort of solitude. That's a sort of training camp. I know that Abel Sanchez up at Big Bear as well. He doesn't take any nonsense with hangers-ons being at the gym, and there's probably a few others as well, probably Canelo as well. At elite level, you need to have single focus. You need to be away from all the nonsense, all the noise. You go up in the mountains, you do your work. You come down to ground zero, you do your interviews, you do your press stuff, but when you're up in the mountains, away from all that nonsense, away from all the distractions, family, phone off, work to do. I know one former heavyweight champion who's from the UK, who had his girlfriend in the dressing room doing up his shoelaces before a fight, right? Doing his girlfriend doing his bootlaces up before. How the hell is that possible? How the hell is that possible? That nonsense. So when you carry on such buffoonery, it's bound to happen. You understand? It's shortcomings. It's bound to be exposed. So I don't know what the hell's going in the camp, but not only now has Deontay Wilder been exposed in terms of how his camp's being run, but Jay Diaz has been exposed as a fraud. That's it, a fraud. Anyone who was pointing out to make Jay Diaz was the trainer, or anyone was crediting Jay Diaz as his trainer, that's been exposed as well. So, and Jay Diaz was the one who was there in the room with the raps. So Jay Diaz has question marks about Jay Diaz. Is he even qualified to know what goes on in a boxing ring or what's going on with the hand wraps? Is he experienced enough to catch things with the commission? And in terms of the commission, let's not even go there, because we know there's been a few fights now. Only recently, the commission had to had to look at a situation with a pair of gloves that were clearly non-padded. That situation happened recently in America. Then we've got the Margarito fight with Shane Mosley and a list of other fights as well. So there's corruption in boxing, and yes, the commission can be corrupt. So the sport is corrupt. That's it. I don't want to hear nothing of anybody saying about, but they got the commission there. The sport is corrupt. From top to bottom, the sport is corrupt. That's it. So I don't trust nothing when it comes to saying something's legit. I even question some of these PED tests, because I said before, the PED test can be used to assassinate one's character. And they don't really mean shit, because it's one rule for one fighter and another rule for someone else. Povetkin, 3 times caught, still on pay-per-view. Canelo caught, comes back, fights in a pay-per-view fight. Louis Ortiz caught and still gets to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world twice. So Big Baby Miller caught 3 times, banned. Liam Cameron caught with a touch of cocaine in his system, banned for 4 years. The sport is corrupt. There is no 2 ways about it. And anything and everything is possible, and it's all on the table for investigation. Everyone, every fighter is susceptible to being caught in all this stuff now. We have to take another look at the sport. We really do. And I told you as well about the media. They will follow the suit of the Pied Piper, whoever the promoter may be. And the Pied Piper says, blow this, dance to this tune. That's what you're going to see in the media. There's a real agenda to on Deontay Wilder, and to get Deontay Wilder out of the sport of boxing in any way possible, whether it be through the courts and trying to get him not to get a 3rd fight with Tyson Fury, or to say his career is finished, whatever. But when that happens, and you see people going out of their way to say a guy's career is finished, and he's only had 1 loss in his career, that tells you they'd like to think he's finished. Because, you know what, this guy's a dangerous proposition. I would like anybody who's a boxer to turn up to Deontay, apart from probably Tyson Fury, in the heavyweight division, turns out, yeah, you're finished, mate, and they step in the ring with Deontay Wilder. And I want to talk about this in a different video. But for now, we'll leave it as that. Mark Breeden, I'm glad he's done what he's done in terms of that final statement. At least it's cleared his name to an extent. But the question I ask is, why did you stay around for so long? Even when you didn't have the man's telephone number, I hadn't spoken to him for years. Why were you still working with Deontay? What was your motivation? What was your intentions? I'll leave it as that. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with another one soon. Take care.